Before we dive in, let me ask, what would you do if you bought an old abandoned yacht only to find a family squatting inside when you came back to renovate it? Let me know in the comments and tell me which country you're watching from. And if you love insane HOA and Karen stories like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more crazy real-life dramas. When Ethan bought the old yacht, it was supposed to be his dream restoration project. The boat had been sitting at the marina for years, its previous owner gone, its paint chipped, and its nameplate faded. He found it listed on a foreclosure auction website, and after months of paperwork and port clearance, it was finally his. Ethan was a carpenter by trade and a lifelong tinkerer. He had grown up around boats, fixing up old ones with his dad back in Maine. Now, with his kids grown and his business doing well, this was his hobby, a chance to turn a forgotten wreck into something beautiful again. The first time he stepped aboard, he could smell the salt, rust, and old memories clinging to the air. The decks were warped, but the bones were strong. He spent that whole afternoon inspecting the engine, measuring the cabin walls, and planning every detail of the renovation. Before leaving, he locked everything up, took photos for his blueprints, and drove back home, satisfied that the hardest part, ownership, was already done. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves seeing karma served cold. Tell me where you're watching from. I love hearing from my viewers all around the world. And as always, thanks for watching. More wild HOA and Karen stories are on the way. But when he came back 2 weeks later, everything was different. The marina looked the same at first, seagulls circling, fishermen cleaning their nets, and the same smell of diesel in the breeze. But when he reached the dock where his yacht was tied, something felt wrong. There were clothes hanging from a makeshift line on the deck, smoke rose from a small camping stove sitting near the railing, and the yacht, his yacht, had music coming from inside. At first, he thought someone might be using it temporarily, maybe a homeless person or someone from the docks. But as he climbed aboard, he realized this wasn't temporary at all. There were children's toys scattered across the deck, a stroller near the stairs, and when he looked through the cabin window, he saw furniture, cheap folding chairs, blankets, a small television plugged into a generator. Someone had moved in. When he stepped inside, his heart sank. The once empty cabin was now a mess of bags, boxes, and personal belongings. Photos taped to the walls, food on the counter, shoes lined by the steps. It looked lived in. Too lived in. That's when he heard movement from the back cabin. A voice, sharp and entitled, called out, and a woman stepped into view. She was around 40, dressed in beachwear, sunglasses on her head, and an expression that screamed arrogance. Behind her, 2 teenage kids peeked out. She didn't look guilty or scared. She looked annoyed, as if he was trespassing. This was Karen. Karen claimed that the yacht had been abandoned for years and that she and her family had been taking care of it. According to her, the marina told her it was fair game, that no one had owned it for ages, so she just moved in. Her husband, a quiet man with a scruffy beard, stood behind her, avoiding eye contact. Ethan was stunned. He had all the ownership papers, the title, the marina registration, everything. But when he told her that, she laughed and brushed him off. She said they had nowhere else to go and that he could share the space until they figured things out. It was absurd. He just found squatters living in his newly bought yacht, acting like it was theirs. Ethan decided not to cause a scene. He quietly left and called the marina office. The dockmaster was sympathetic, but hesitant. He explained that once people move onto a vessel, it becomes tricky. They had to go through legal eviction channels. Since the yacht was considered a dwelling now, the process could take weeks, even months. Karen and her family knew that. They had done this before. Over the next few days, Ethan tried to reason with them, but they wouldn't budge. They even hung a sign on the yacht that said, "Private residents, keep out." He found beer cans floating near the hull, trash piling up on the deck, and worst of all, they had started inviting friends over. The situation was spiraling out of control. So Ethan did what he did best. He got smart. He started by checking his contract and the marina rules. He learned that while he couldn't evict them directly, he could cut off access to utilities, and since the yacht was docked under his name, he had every right to control the power and water hookups. He called the marina and terminated the yacht's shore power connection. The lights went out. The generators sputtered out a few hours later. Then, he closed the water valve that connected the dock supply. Within a day, the residents were miserable. The heat was unbearable without fans, the kids were whining, the fridge had stopped working. Karen tried yelling at the marina staff, but they told her politely that she wasn't the registered owner and had no authority there. Ethan waited patiently. A few days later, he returned with a security officer and a copy of his deed. They approached the yacht quietly. What they found inside was chaos. The family had started packing. Karen looked furious, her pride crushed under the weight of reality. She screamed about rights and squatters' protection, but it didn't matter. The officer handed her a notice giving them 24 hours to vacate or face trespassing charges. By the next morning, the yacht was empty. Ethan stepped back aboard for the first time in weeks. The place was filthy. Food stains, torn curtains, broken items, everywhere. But it was his again. As he cleaned up, he couldn't help but laugh. Karen had picked the wrong person to mess with. Over the next few months, Ethan poured his time into the restoration. He replaced the wood paneling, polished the brass, painted the hull, and rebuilt the engine from scratch. The yacht came back to life, gleaming under the sun like it never had before. One afternoon, while working on the deck, Ethan saw the same family walking by on the dock. They avoided eye contact, the kids stared silently, and Karen turned her head the other way. They were living in a small RV parked nearby now, a far cry from their seaside mansion. Ethan smiled. Karma had already done the talking. When the renovation was finally complete, he renamed the yacht Second Wind. It wasn't just a name, it was a reminder that no matter how much people try to take what's yours, patience and strategy always win in the end. And as he sailed it out into the bay for the first time, leaving the marina behind, Ethan couldn't help but feel proud. He'd turned an abandoned wreck into a masterpiece and turned a squatter scam into one of the most satisfying victories of his life.